I find it quite exhausting actually, like podcasting. If I do like,
thank God it's Friday.
Yeah. It's no, sometimes I come off like an hour and a half podcast, 2-hour podcast, and I'm knackered. I need to go have some lunch, I need to go to the gym and go for a walk and refresh. So yeah, well, I mean, for people who don't know who you are, who don't follow you on LinkedIn, do you want to just give like an intro of who you are, your background and what you do, and then bring us up to like the present day of, setting up Restack?
So hi everyone, I am Holly Langley from Restack. My background is I started off in my career as executive assistant, personal assistant, and then over time moved up that corporate ladder, you could say. It's really, the whole journey I've been on is very funny, because when I was younger, the one thing I did not want to do was work in an office. I was adamant I didn't want to work in an office, and yet I absolutely love it. So I started off as a personal assistant and executive assistant, covering ad hoc tasks, travel bookings, you name it. I then moved into business operations support for a recruitment agency. So that involved more the HR side of stuff, office management, compliance, some sort of sales processing stuff, looking after the CRM and the suppliers and the technology. And then I eventually became the head of operations, which obviously was more responsibility, but very much, I suppose, organising and coordinating what was going in that business. And that was actually happening across the UK and Germany as well. So I was very much the go-to person for all operational things that was going on within that business. And I really loved it. No 2 days were the same. It was an incredible experience, and I learned so much from a back office point of view and also the sales point of view. But it got to a point earlier on this year when I was no longer sort of fulfilled by doing that. And what I really, really wanted to do was go and help other recruitment agencies. I think it was about 18 months ago, I read a really, really good book by Simon Sinek. And I think it's called Leading from Purpose or Leading with Purpose. I'm sure we can put a link in the comments later on. And that really inspired me, that what I wanted to do was grow other agencies. So ever since then, I was trying to find ways in which I could do this. So earlier on this year, I handed in my notice. I got rid of all of the sort of security that I had from being in my role for so long. And I set up my own company. So we're called Restack. Choosing the name was probably the hardest thing that I had to do, but we got there in the end. And I now work with agencies, big or small, one client or a member of staff or 500 members of staff, and I'm helping them grow and sort of maintain a sustainable recruitment business, which could be anything from analysing the technology they use and the processes they have, through to supporting them on advice on how to make sure their sales processes are watertight, so they don't have unnecessary candidate turnover, so we can reduce the risk of sort of candidate rebates and dropouts, but increase sort of the rehire and the referrals that business is getting. So it's been a hell of a journey, and I've got to say, I've loved every minute of setting up and running my own business. It has been incredibly worthwhile, and I'm really, really glad that I took that leap of faith. Really,
that's awesome. No, it's I as someone who did it like just over a year ago, I've got mad respect for anyone who goes self-employed, because especially when you've been in a role or an industry like a while, removing that security blanket is very scary. But yeah, I feel like if you're naturally entrepreneurial and you've got that calling, I think to put it in a simpler way, I think when you start it, you realize quite quickly if you're the type of person who should be self-employed or wants to be self-employed or not. Because I know a lot of people who have done it and then 4 months later they've gone back working for someone else. And I also know people who have done it and the thought of getting a job again and working for someone else is like terrifying for them.
I really agree with you there. And my husband is employed in a quite a large company, and we often have this conversation. And I say I couldn't go back to being employed now. I think I'd really struggle because I love the freedom. I've recorded this podcast with you today. It's taken a couple of hours out of my time, but I haven't had to sort of speak to everybody and get permission to do that. I haven't got to worry about what I'm missing elsewhere. I can be fully accountable for all of my actions. And that is really, really, really valuable to me. And I can't put a price on the balance that running my own business is given me. And I'm not going to lie to you, there are days when I've done far too much work and I'll get home or with a client, or I'll have to log on and do some more bits. But then there are other days and I won't do as much. But it all balances out, and it gives me certainly the balance that I need, that I want for my life, both sort of professionally and personally as well. And I think it's really suited me and sort of my work ethic. Now, what's fascinating is I recently had a 2-week holiday, so was off for 2 weeks, and my whole time I thought, I can't wait to go back to work on that Monday, because I'm not going to be sort of I'm not going to have to go back and do so much work because I'm not employed. So it's going to be really easy transitioning back. There'll be no holiday blues for me because I'm in control. That Monday morning was awful because I didn't have to go into the office and I didn't have to go and do work. But I kind of said to myself, no, I've got to do work. I've had 2 weeks off. I went out for a walk at like 11 a.m., which I never do. But then I kind of reset, got back into it, and had a really good afternoon. But I've now learned that even though in my mind it might be a bit easier to come back after a time being off, actually it's harder than I thought it was going to be. So I'll probably have the same thing over Christmas. Maybe that first day back in January when I'm back to work, maybe take it slightly easier, have a bit of time to rest so I can get back into it. Because there is a less accountability, but equally I knew if I didn't show up and work that day, I wasn't going to win my next new client or support my client in that way or get that testimonial done or that meeting booked in. So that's the thing that drives me, is always trying to be the best and get the next client in to grow my business more. And who knows where that next client is coming from, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting one actually, because I'm the same. I definitely used to get the holiday blues, and I never get that anymore because I'm in control of when I work and how I work. I know exactly what needs to be done. I know what doesn't need to be done. And yeah, I suppose for me anyway, personally, it's because you'll grow it. Like if you do that extra work, those extra hours, those long weeks, it's because you're actually like investing in your own little thing rather than growing someone else's. And you're not disposable. Like you can't just be fired and replaced. I sort of liken it to paying rent to a landlord, whereas compared to like paying a mortgage, because you're still putting that money in every single month, still coming out your bank account every month. But the difference with a mortgage is it's basically going back into your pocket eventually, whereas with rent it's just gone, and that's all money that you could be spent, building your own little property.
That's a really interesting analogy. Yes, actually, just yesterday I was speaking to a friend of mine who is paying rent, but the landlords are her parents. So she was a bit like, we really want to buy somewhere, but renting isn't that bad, and we're giving the money to our family, we're keeping it within our family, so it's okay, it's bearable. And I think you're right. And like for me, the biggest thing that I've kind of learned, one of the biggest things I've learned since I've started is, and I'm sure you feel the same, is there's no way of knowing where your next client or your next lead or your next bit of work is going to come from. So you kind of have got to put yourself out there in a variety of different capacities, which is incredibly time consuming when it's just you on your own as a small business. But you have to do it, and you have to go that extra mile. And that's where I think successful entrepreneurs kind of succeed, because they've got multiple different avenues of business. So when I first started, I just kind of thought to myself, well, I'll just be on LinkedIn all the time, because that's what I know. That's where all my recruitment leaders are, and I'll go to the odd event and that sort of stuff. However, where I am now at this point in my business is I'm in a business networking group where we meet weekly. And this morning, there is a recruitment leader there who I'm now in conversations with. I'm on YouTube, making YouTube content for people who can get my advice for free. I'm on all the social channels. What have we got? We've got Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, whatever else, and of course LinkedIn. I'm at events. I'm in about 5 different WhatsApp groups. And actually, to succeed, I think you have to be doing all of this all of the time. But it's hard because it's incredibly time consuming. And with the things like, especially social media and the events, so you can't even delegate that. And a lot of it you can't necessarily get, I don't know, AI to do, because it's very much down to who you are and your personal approach. So that's one of the things that I've kind of learned in my journey so far, is that you've got to be a master of everything and put yourself out there as much as you can, in anticipation that you don't know where your next client is going to come from. Now, you're obviously in this, you kind of do something similar to me. We're both on our own. Do you find that as well? You kind of have really learned to kind of just put yourself out there in ways you never thought you'd have to sort of really build that personal brand?
So I think it's been a lot easier for me because I was already doing that. So when I was employed, because I'm, you know, anyone who knows me, I don't mind attention, you know, like, and that definitely helps with creating content. And I was already building my personal brand on LinkedIn before. I was already posting content before. But I think the difference is when you're like promoting your own thing, especially when it's you as well. It's not like a tech product that you've developed and you've got, you know, 5 mil angel investment and all that kind of stuff. You're like selling your knowledge and yourself. Because we obviously do very similar things. You help agencies slightly different than how I help agencies, but you are selling yourself and your knowledge and your background and how you come across. The flip side of that is that any criticism towards your service or towards like your views or your opinions or your knowledge that you talk about, it can be very easy to take that very personally. And I don't know if you've had this yet, but I've certainly had days where I've had imposter syndrome, or I've questioned myself, or I'm like, oh, maybe I don't know a lot about that, or maybe I'm not good enough to do this by myself. Maybe I should go get some more experience. But the good thing about like chatting with like fellow entrepreneurs is you realize that everyone has that. Like, there are some highly successful people that I would love to be in their situation. They make loads of money. They've got massive networks and followings, and they've got people begging to work with them, or, you know, they get messages every week about how people love their content. And even they're like, oh, maybe, you know, as soon as you get some criticism or someone says, oh, you're rubbish, your viewpoint is stupid, you don't know what you're talking about, it's very easy to take it to heart.
It is. And I have to say, and coming from a background in a sales environment, like it, especially in the recruitment industry, it's not easy. It's not an easy, simple industry to be in. There's always drama, if it's a client or a candidate or this or that. And it definitely taught me a lot about resilience. I am a very different person to when I started my career, because I've had to build up a bit of, I suppose, immunity to some of the stuff that goes on, and putting myself out, especially on the likes of YouTube and TikTok. I get a lot of hateful comments on there, but of course, none of them thankfully for me, none of them are particularly like, I'm not that bothered. Like, someone said I looked homeless the other day, and they're just nasty people. Like, you're stupid. You don't have a clue what you're talking about. I disagree with what you're saying. blah, blah, blah. To be honest, I just go, fine. My response and my process is I respond to every comment. Anyone ever puts a comment on social, feel free to test it out if you're listening, but I respond to everything. So I'll just kind of say, thank you for the feedback. And actually, to the one about me looking homeless, I said, oh, it's a good job I'm getting my hair cut tomorrow then, or something like that. So that has definitely helped. However, I can't imagine doing this 10 years ago or when I was a teenager. Mm-hmm. So I'm very lucky that I've built, I suppose, those boundaries up, and I try not to let it come to heart. Thankfully, as my business is quite new, I haven't been in a situation where I've got really, really negative feedback from a client or somebody in my network. Inevitably, it's going to happen at some point. For me, I think the most crucial thing, if that was to happen, is to understand why we've got to that point and how we can move on from it, because your reputation is so valuable, especially when it's just you. So I'm trying to build as many sort of, I suppose, key people in my network and relationships as many as I can. But it's going to be tricky over the coming years for me to make sure I can maintain all of them. But that's definitely something that is worthwhile, and we have to take everything as the face value, really, haven't you? And utilize the positive feedback when it comes. And if it's not so positive, try and learn from that and move on, and try not to take it to heart too much. But interesting what you said about the imposter syndrome is, I do struggle with that slightly. And I've recently signed up with a new client, and it's very different to some of the stuff that I've done before for a number of reasons. And I was like, surely they're not going to hire me. Like, surely they could afford to go for a massive consultancy to do their work. Like, they probably could pay like £500,000 to do what have you. Like, they could afford. They don't need me. Like, why would they choose me? But they did. And even now, I've been working with them for quite a few weeks now. There are days when I think, why did they choose me? I can't do this. And I kind of have to psych myself up and go, like, they have chosen you for a reason. They've chosen you because you're you. You do bring value to them, and that's okay. So I very much kind of have to kind of almost just look at myself in the mirror and psych myself up a bit to kind of get that negative energy out. But yeah, it can be really hard, and there are definitely times when you're on your own, like we are, where it's not all positive, but you've just got to try and make the most of when it is. And when you definitely feel positive, you really use that energy to put something great in place and do your next big piece of work when you're feeling really positive and full of energy.
Yeah, the consulting world's a weird one, because I don't know, I always assumed like everyone had their shit together, and the people who were doing it like knew everything. They were masters. They were, they had an answer for everything. When actually the reality is, like, don't get me wrong, like obviously a lot of people do know a lot of stuff, but I think as humans we have this thing where we look at people who might not even be on the same level as you. It might be less experienced than you, have less knowledge, but you look at them, and especially through the lens of social media, and you're like, oh, wow, they've really got their shit together, and I really don't. Like you said, this client's paying me a lot of money to give, help them solve a problem which I'm not even sure I can solve. But I feel like with consulting it's very important to remember that you don't have to have all the answers, but you are able to figure them out. That's part of your job, right? It's to figure out the answers. It's not just to have the answer ready made all the time. That's not realistic. Like, we are humans with a brain. We're not a piece of AI software with unlimited storage of data. So yeah, that imposter syndrome is normal. I think that's another thing as well. You've got to remember it's normal. Everyone has it. Like, there's one of my favorite ever books is Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. I think it's down there somewhere, but it's one of my favorite books, and it goes through how I don't think it was called imposter syndrome when the book was published in like the 80s, but it goes through basically that, and how these CEOs of multi-million-pound companies who are like lauded as these experts in their industry, and privately they're actually a bit like, why am I a CEO? What is going on? Why is that magazine written a publication about me? I read as well, like, on imposter syndrome, Michael J. Fox. So Michael J. Fox, I don't know if you've read his book, but he's got a large, like, he really struggled with imposter syndrome, really bit. Like, he, in his book, I think he'd just done Back to the Future 1 or just done Back to the Future 2. He was the biggest star in the world. He's a little bit before our time, obviously. You're born around the same time as me, but we all know, like, he was enormous for quite a few years afterwards. And, he was like almost a sex symbol as well, because loads of girls had crushes on him because of Back to the Future and all this kind of stuff. And he talks quite in depth about how he was getting all these parts, being approached for like all these big movies and riding off the fame of Back to the Future. And he was absolutely certain that one day he would wake up and there would be like a big announcement or something like, oh, Michael J. Fox actually isn't a very good actor. And he was convinced of it. He was convinced it was going to happen. So what he was doing, and this is one of the reasons I think he says that he thinks it accelerated his Parkinson's disease in the end. He was working non-stop because he just wanted to make the most of the moment in the sun sort of thing. And it's just interesting. Like, he was one of the most famous people in the world at the time because of Back to the Future and because he just done Family Ties. And even he was like, it doesn't matter what people said to him. It doesn't matter how much people paid him. It doesn't matter what media, like what awards he won. It was never enough. It was never enough to like convince him that actually, yeah, you've got your shit together. So I always think of that kind of stuff when I've got imposter syndrome.
It's amazing what the mind does to you, and how it can be a help and a hindrance at the same time. Something that I wanted to touch on about what you were just saying previously was about sort of being a consultant and that sort of stuff, and looking up to others. And I think something that I've also found is to leverage my network and get support from others when I physically can't do something. I can't do it all. I don't know all the answers. That's fine. If someone came in and said, Holly, can you help our sales team get more retainers? No, I can't. I'm not going to do that. But I know someone who can. Can he come and deliver new starter training on the entire recruitment process? Well, not really. But I know someone who can. So I've really tried to build out my network of other people who are in a very similar position to me, because I want to support others, and hopefully then they'll refer business back to me. And that's been really, really valuable. But what I've found is there, especially in tech and recruitment technology, there is so much of it. So every day I will speak to a client and they'll go, oh, do you know X, Y, and Z? Or, oh, have you ever used ... And I can't always say yes, because there is so much. So they'll go, well, how would we work together then? And I'll say, well, look, this is a piece of technology I haven't used. However, I will spend time in my own my own capacity that I won't charge to you to learn and upskill myself on this product, because that's the best way that I can then learn and support you, is by upskilling myself in a whole variety of different areas. But that's definitely something that I found quite challenging, because I've got no idea what all of the different sort of businesses I work with are using from a tech point of view, and there's no way I could use them all or have demos on them all. I'll be here to the end of time, at which point there'd be more stuff coming out. So I've definitely kind of learned that, be honest and build relationships with the suppliers when you can, but also harness the power of your network and rely on others and work with others where you can. And that will hopefully sort of bring business back around to you as well. So that's been something else that's been really useful. And I'd recommend to others out there.
Yeah, it's, well, you sort of touched on, like, what software to use and that sort of thing. Setting up your own business is, especially because you know what you want to do, and you have like that particular knowledge of operations or technology or business development or whatever it is you do. But when you set up a business, it's very, very hard to go into it knowing about everything else you need to know, right? So, like, what challenges have you had then setting up your business? Like, have you had like products or whatever you've invested in that turned out to be a dud, and that you've wasted your time or your money on them?
So it's an interesting one. So when I set my company up, I I don't know. I don't really know what I was thinking in regards to some things, but it seemed like a good idea at the time. So I've spent money on stuff that I definitely did not need. So when I started, I built a product that I still think is really good, and it was on Power BI. I used someone to help me, and it was measuring the ROI from technology. So you would pull in financial data, the data from the technology, and the data from your CRM or your database. And that was going to give you a really full overview about what was happening and how much your tech was making you. And I still actually haven't found it being done anywhere else. However, no one's actually used it yet. So I've invested in it. It's still sitting there in my OneDrive, ready to get used with the client. But actually, that's not the service or the product that everybody has needed. What they've wanted is much more unique specialist stuff and more sort of learning and development, more process mapping rather than the measuring of the ROI. But that's absolutely fine. I've got it there when I need it. And so hopefully it's more of an investment, but I now wish I hadn't spent my money on that when I did. I've bought some tech for my business. Now I use a CRM to log everything in. That's free. But I've bought some other things to help me along the way. And most of them I do use and have been valuable. But if I knew then what I knew now, I probably wouldn't have signed up for some of the agreements that I had because I just didn't need it. And actually, as setting up your business, like cash is king, especially sort of in the first few months. So I really could have done with an extra bit of cash here and there to have helped me. So I definitely would recommend to any small business owner, before you sort of buy something, really think about it. I now have a rule. It's a bit silly, but if it's more than £50 for my business, I'm not going to buy it until I've thought about it for 24 hours. I'm very impulsive. So for me, like, it's really easy to just go, oh, go on then. Oh yeah, I'll buy that. But actually, I don't need it. So that's my new rule. Wait 24 hours until I commit to buying something, just so I can fully think it through. One of the other mistakes I've made is sending client proposals too soon. So a few weeks back, someone approached me on LinkedIn, wanted some advice and some work on their systems. We had a phone call. We were on the phone for 20 minutes. I sent a proposal over. He seemed really keen on the phone. So I sent the proposal. I actually sent the terms and conditions over as well, because that's what they said they wanted. 2 days later, can't afford my services, and I haven't heard from them since. So what I've now realised is, even though someone seems interested on the phone, are they actually? What I'm now doing is I'm not sending out a proposal, and definitely not any sort of terms and conditions, until I've had a proper meeting with them. Ideally, that would be face to face. But if it's not face to face, like an actual booked in Zoom or Teams call, what have you, is fine. But I'm not sending proposals until that's happened. And a friend recommended this tip to me. If you're sending a proposal to a client, send it via a link rather than a attachment. So like share it, like put it on OneDrive or Dropbox and share that link. Therefore, if you wake up the next day and you realise that you've had a spelling error or you want to add something in, you can just the link is up to date. You don't then need to resend them an attachment and go, oh, by the way, sorry, I put that spelling error in there. So that's been a really good piece of advice as well, surrounding the proposals. And my third piece of advice, which I kind of touched upon earlier, was about sort of social presence. Like when I started, I had a big-ish LinkedIn network. I had like 4,000 followers, which is pretty good. And I'd said to myself, well, all my clients are on LinkedIn, so I'm just going to do content on LinkedIn. So that lasted for 2 months, and I now am, as I said, on all the other channels. So I really regret not putting myself out on all the other platforms way before. Like, you had a really good head start because you've been doing that for years. So I really wish I'd done that. I still need to combat Twitter. It's called X now, I believe. I still need to combat that, but that's a bit of a regret not doing it sooner, but I'm now glad that I do that. And the WhatsApp groups. So I'm a member of quite a few WhatsApp groups, and what I've realised is a lot of them are just like moaning about suppliers, or they're asking for advice. But I kind of wanted to create a bit of a name for myself in the groups. So I'm on maybe 5 or 6 different groups, but some of the ones that have really got my key target audiences, I've now started to kind of have organised discussions in them. So yesterday I put a message out and I just said, just wanted to have a quick discussion. What are your thoughts about chatbots as part of the sales process? Does it help or hinder it? Is it useful? Have you had any success from it? So I'm not necessarily giving out advice, but people are going to see my name on those groups more and more, and will soon start to build up sort of an understanding of who I am, normally talking about tech and the sales process, which is really good. So definitely been a few mistakes over the last 3 months, but I've now learned from them, which is the main thing. And I'll have to come along in 3 more months and tell you about the next 3 things I've learned.
Yeah, it'd be great to have you back. That's the good thing about businesses, right? It's exciting. It's always ever evolving. And I spoke to this owner of a recruitment business over in Miami about a month ago. So she's doing amazingly. She's been doing it for like 15 years. Her name's Emily Keys. She's actually just recorded a like apprentice style TV show over in the States, which is pretty cool. But I was chatting with her because we were just having a chat about BD and stuff, and she was telling me how she runs a very successful agency. You know, they're doing brilliantly, but that little nagging voice of doubt in the back of your head when you set up a business, like, I'm sure you've gone through it. It's just like when you're having your bad days and you're stressed and you're tired and you're doubting yourself and you're like, oh, I'm going to run out of money or whatever. It's very easy to have those thoughts of, would it just be easy if I just went and got a 9 to 5? I could get a good salary. I'm good at what I do, blah, blah, blah. And she said, David, if you're having those now, just trust me. It doesn't matter how good it's going. You will still have those thoughts on a weekly, if not daily basis. I do now, and our business makes a lot of money. Like, so that sort of, it was good to know that it's nice to sort of accept that that's not going to go away. Similar to imposter syndrome, really, in that it's just part of being self-employed and not having that security blanket. And it probably falls back into, like, you know, the whole human thing of having security and being able to survive and eat. That's never going to go away. But once you realize it's never going to go away, and you accept it, when that does come up, it's not as worrying. But one thing I want to ask you, right? Because I've always wondered this, and this will make you laugh. You know, being a head of ops, what does a head of ops at a recruitment agency actually do? Because I don't really understand it.
Oh, that's a great question. So, how can I describe this? I was the person. And if you said to me, what did I do? I would say to you, I do everything apart from recruitment. So let's take a normal week. So on a Monday, you'd have perm placement starting. So we would need to liaise with the sales team and say, has Joe Bloggs started at John Lewis, for example? Right, yes. Okay, finance, you now need to process this invoice for 20k. But you can't just process the invoice. There's probably 25 things that need to be done, because you need to log it on the CRM. You might need to also follow up the references. You need to tell this person they've started. You need to make sure the invoice is gone. You then need to add it to the commission structure, whatever that may be. So there's just a lot of back office process, some of which are quite manual. So you're kind of bridging the gap almost between the accounts team and the sales team. Also, things like HR, so recruitment, very sadly, has quite a high staff turnover because it's not an easy industry. A lot of people come and go. So there's the HR point of view that I oversaw. I also oversaw marketing, so everything that was going on from the company's LinkedIn to the website to the next conference they were hosting an event at. You had to go along and sort of manage and oversee that, as well as the budgets for all of those things. Also the sales enablement side of stuff. So that was something I was really interested in, and partly why I set up my business. So I was then going in and educating the sales team about how to use their tech better, and the suppliers. Like I probably spent 3 to 5 hours every week, almost a whole day, just talking to suppliers about what's working, what's not working. Have they got any new features out, or there's a new piece of tech we might want to buy, so you've got to have a demo and then liaise with them. And then obviously people are just calling you constantly, trying to get you to buy their next product or their next service, and all of that side of stuff. And a lot of it was also, I was involved in the management team meetings and the senior management meetings, at which point you're then having to roll out the business's mission and sort of strategy to other people, as well as anything that gets thrown at you. It's coming up to Christmas, so you've got to organise client gifts, the Christmas party, the targets for next year, wrapping up the commissions for this year, what are the budgets for next year. So there's just a whole load of stuff like that, and you are the go-to person. So if someone's computer breaks, you're supposed to be able to fix it. And if you can't fix it, you've got to find someone who does. And if the office dishwasher breaks, you're liaising with and making sure that the office manager can get that sorted, so the sales team are happy, so they want to come into the office every day. So it's just a whole load of, I suppose, admin stuff that's got to get done, but it's got to keep the business going. And you've got to be accountable for it, because if you don't turn up and deliver, your sales team aren't going to be able to do their job, which isn't going to bring money in to the business. So if you've got a situation when your CRM isn't working, or for some reason everyone's LinkedIn recruiter has been blocked or paused because the accounts team did not pay their invoice, that's down to you. So you've got to get that invoice paid. You've got to support the sales team and apologise and get them using something else to find their candidates and to do their new business. And then you need to liaise with the supplier to get that back up and running, like ideally yesterday. So it's just a whole load of stuff, and you never know what is gonna come in. And for example, last year we opened up an office in Germany. So for 6 months we were fully remotely, because obviously we weren't in Germany at the time, trying to find an office, arranging office visits virtually and then face to face, dealing with German compliance and making sure that all of the we were learning about new legislations to fit in with employment law, as well as sort of contracts and permanent law for German clients, because it's a whole different sort of like a whole different way of working over there. And all of the stuff that then came with that. So it's like, I love the fact it was different every day, and I'm very lucky that my job now still enables me to have that variety. But it's really hard, and I actually run masterclasses now for people in recruitment operations, teaching them how to manage their time successfully, how to be organised, how to work with suppliers so they can get the most out of their tech, and how to almost sort of delegate stuff to others, and really sort of get their agency or their business in the best place possible. Something that I use, which was the best thing that anyone ever told me about, was Trello. So if you're not familiar with Trello, it is a free project management tool. It's similar to, I think, Monday.com as well. And you basically, it's on Google, there's on Chrome, there's also an app, and it teaches you basically organisation. It's like Organisation 101. So I go on there and I've got a list of everything I've got to do today. So today I knew I had to prep for this podcast. So at 9 o'clock today, a task came up that said prep for podcast. After this, I've got to do some new business calls, and I've then got to send a proposal to somebody. And then once I've done that, I'm going to move that into my waiting to hear from. So once I've sent the proposal, I'm going to chase them next week and say, actually, I haven't heard back from you. What, any news? Do you want any changes to it? Let's have a meeting. So I use that for everything. And once I got away from writing stuff in a notebook or on Excel or Word, that really helped my efficiency and my productivity, because everything was there. If you said something to me now, I'm not going to remember to do it. So if you literally said, Holly, can you send me that book, the name of the book? I'd be like, yeah. But I wouldn't do that unless I've written it down. So something that I've learned, and a way that I suppose works best, is writing everything down and putting it on there. And that's my single source of truth, really. And that's where I log everything. And that makes me really efficient, and you can schedule stuff. So every Monday I get a reminder at 9 a.m. to do my LinkedIn content for the week. Every Friday I get a notification about a networking group I'm part of, so I have to prepare for my meeting there. So I use that and I harness it to support me and to get me working in a way that works best, really. But Trello, honestly, not a sponsor. It's free. You don't need the premium version until you've got a really well-established business, and if you're collaborating with others. But it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I jump between several different ways of productivity because I'm currently in the stages of getting tested for ADHD, but I'm 99% sure I have it, and I jump between Trello, Notion, and good old fashioned pen and paper, and I still can't decide what I prefer. It really is just like a mood thing. I think I probably use pen and paper more. So the way I do things is, I'll show you. So I use the Eisenhower matrix of the quadrants. So you've got. Yeah. I'll actually show you. I'll show you what I do. Can you see that? Yeah. So I draw that. So a quadrant. Yeah. Can you see that? So I draw that, and then I've got important. Yeah. So I won't write out, but basically, important and urgent. Important, not urgent. Random thoughts that pop into my head, like movies I want to see, things I want to buy, things I want to Google, because I'm very bad at interrupting what I'm doing and Googling stuff. And what I've started using this quadrant for now is content ideas. So I put all my content ideas there. Then what I'll do is I log my content ideas onto Notion. So I've got a little content ideas page. And I highly recommend, if you like Trello, I highly recommend you check out Notion, because it's like Trello on steroids. Also free. And that's basically how I do it, because I've used Trello, and I think it's really good for certain types of things, but that my issue with it was, and it might have just been how I was using it, but my issue with it was prioritization. So what I ended up with is a big list of to do, but I didn't have it prioritized in any way, and without me actually sitting down and thinking about it, I didn't know what to start on. But on your content as well, so you said so how do you do your LinkedIn content then? This is what I'm interested in. So 9 a.m. every Monday, you plan and write all your content out for the week?
So yes. So what I do is every Monday, and this doesn't always work. So I try to do LinkedIn content. I try to post something Monday, Wednesday, Friday on my personal page. Ideally, I would post every day, but my minimum commitment is 3 times. I also have a company page, so I have to keep 2 LinkedIn pages going. Now, I actually use a product to help me write my LinkedIn content. So it's called, I'm sure they won't mind me sharing it, it's called Paiger, Paiger, and it is a combination of prompts, and then it writes the content for you using AI, and you can then schedule it. So I will go in on a Monday, and it's got loads of ideas that I've inputted. So for example, it will say on the system, like the content topic would be how chatbots can aid the recruitment process. And then it is going to give me, I'm going to press a button and it's going to give me that. So it's similar to what ChatGPT does, but it's kind of saved it all in there. So I will then look at the content. Now, for me, I want my content to sound like me. So I'm not just going to post it. So I then go in and edit it, give it the Holly touch. So it's more about who I am and actually my ethos and what I believe in. Because of what I do is very niche, I found out that a lot of the AI content doesn't support it because it's gone off on a tangent and it's not really what I'm sort of saying to everybody. So I then go in, I edit that, and then I save it and schedule the posts for Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I try to work in advance. Like this week, I scheduled a post on Monday. I then had to go on to LinkedIn actually, as I did a poll, which I then did on LinkedIn and then scheduled that. So for me, I just try to work in advance because, like, for example, today, I didn't have a LinkedIn plan. I didn't have a post to do today. I'm not going to have time to do one now. By the time I finish this call, I probably would think like it's too late. I'm just going to leave it. So for me, first thing on a Monday, I go in and do all my content, and that is brilliant. Things like YouTube and TikTok, it's harder because I normally obviously film myself. So I've got to be presentable and looking professional to film my content. I'm never sure who's going to be watching my videos. So if I look a right mess and I'm lying on the sofa making a video, that's not the personal brand that I want. So I then have to kind of have a day where I've like, I know it sounds silly, like I've washed my hair, I'm wearing a top or something that like looks okay and it's clean, I've got a good background. Then when you're doing content, you kind of need to, and you're on it, you have to be one step ahead from that point of view as well. So there are some days I look at the camera, I'm like, no, not today, we'll do the videoing tomorrow. But I've learned a lesson because today it's Friday when we're recording this, and I've got to get a YouTube video up today. Currently, I've edited it. I've filmed it and I need to edit it. So I don't want to be in the habit of doing last minute content, but I've left it to the last minute today. And that's really not something I should be doing because I now know when I go in there and edit it, it's not going to be as good quality because I'm going to be rushing. So I really would recommend if you're trying to build out your brand and your personal stuff and personal brand on LinkedIn or wherever it is, try and do it in advance when you're in the right mindset to do it. And then it's a lot easier. And then you can just post it or schedule it whenever you need to, really. And I try to also just use my time wisely. Like I've been commuting up to London quite a lot recently. So I've got half an hour on the train, maybe an hour. The signal is terrible, I find, especially you'll get nearer into London. So I then might use that to do my posts or schedule an email I've got to send to a client or something like that. So I'm trying to use my time wisely from that point of view as well. So I'm more organised and I'm more ahead for what else I've got to do.
Yeah. It's just posting content. People don't realise. Like, I remember before, if you'd asked me before I set my business, like about social media managers, I would have said that's such a cool job. It must be so chill. And having done it, there is so much that, like, not even just about creating the content. Like, creating the content and posting it is sometimes the easier bit. The harder bit is like knowing what to post, keeping up with trends, SEO, descriptions, boring admin-y stuff, engaging with your audience, reposting it to different platforms, re-editing it so it's different ratios, so it fit, like all that kind of stuff. People who don't do it don't realize how time consuming that is, do they?
I'm with you. I thought it would be easier than it is, and something that these algorithms that are the bane of my life, really. But like, for your content to be doing good, you've got to engage with your audience. So someone who I've been working with sort of to help with my marketing stuff keeps saying to me, like, go on and comment on other YouTube channels, other TikTok channels who are kind of in your audience, in your group. And that's actually how we ended up meetings. I was commenting and liked your stuff. But it's really hard to do because if I spent 10 minutes, just 10 minutes a day, commenting on TikTok videos, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, that's over an hour. And I haven't actually got the capacity to spend 1 hour every day just commenting on social media, other people's posts. Like, I wish I did. Maybe one day I'll be able to outsource that. But you haven't. But it's so, so important. And getting the ideas. And for me, what I found really annoying is I try to make a mixture of funny content. I put some memes in there. I do some stuff that's about me. So I'll make a video about, I don't know, me and my cat, or I'm going out for a run or something, as well as my valuable advice for recruiters. So people are kind of getting the whole picture about who I am. So I'm building up a bit of an audience repertoire. But this is what really annoys me, is I'll make a fantastic video giving out some amazing free advice for recruiters or for people in sales about, I don't know, about emails or LinkedIn or whatever it is, and it gets 200 views. And yet I'll put up a USA office meme that's taken me 1 minute to prepare. It's adding no value to anybody, and it gets 10,000 views. Like, it's really annoying, but I get it. So it's just frustrating to know that sometimes you're going to make something and you know it's not going to get many views. So I kind of have a bit of a, I suppose you could say I do quantity over quality. I try and post on the short form like TikTok and stuff. I try and post at least sort of 5 times a week, ideally every day, because I know a lot of it isn't going to do well. But if I've had 5 videos, 200 views, then that's 1,000 people viewing it. So it's all just kind of just keeping it going. Just keep that content going, keep and commenting where you can. And you just got to get the content out there, because eventually it will pay off. And in 2 or 3 or 4 years' time, I don't know how you have done, you've looked back and go, do you know what? I'm glad I started that. I'm glad I was consistent, because it's now paid off, because you've got to have many followers and views per week or month, whatever it may be. Yeah,
no, for sure. I think in a lot of industries, content and personal branding is where it's going now, because of AI and everything like that. Being able to create decent content, video content, and knowing how the system works, knowing how the algorithms work, and also just having the confidence to do it is always going to set you apart from the people who don't post. I think it's only like 1 or 2% of LinkedIn users at all post. And, no matter what industry you're in, really, like, very small percentage of those people in your industry actually post. So if you start posting on YouTube, you start posting on LinkedIn, TikTok, people are seeing your face more, they get to know you a bit more beyond your sales pitch, and they'll buy into you more. And, it's most businesses are a human-to-human interaction business. So, yeah, for sure, you're never going to, unless you do something stupid where you're like, I don't know, you're really controversial, you're racist or something, or abusive, you won't regret it. So, it's an interesting one. I actually I've had a few like TikTok influencers and like TikTok comedians and stuff on this podcast, and one of them was called Fred Asquith, and he was talking to me about like how, because he's got like 280,000 followers or something, right? It might even be higher than that now, but he's doing very, very well. Like, he gets recognized in the street and that kind of thing. But he'll spend like a day or 2 recording a skit, like a 45-second skit, edit it. One of them he actually met up with someone who's also a TikTok comedian. They wrote it, which took a couple hours. They recorded it, which took a couple hours. They traveled to somewhere in London to record it. And it got like, I think it got like 30,000 views. Whereas he also posted one where he was just like walking, and it was like a minute-long rant, and it got like 800,000 views. And he was just saying like how it, even for them, even for people with like massive followings, it can be really frustrating, because you never know if your efforts and your time is going to result in more views. Like, that's not usually how it correlates. Like, and you just don't know, so you can't not put the effort in. But a lot of the time, the video that you think was awesome, that you put a lot of love and care into, and you spent ages planning it and editing it, and when you hit post, you're like, yeah, this is going to go viral, and then it like gets 100 views and never goes further. So yeah, it's I think with content, you've almost got to you've got to do it for yourself, and if you think it's good, that's good enough, and then you have no control over whether or not other people like it.
And I think don't overthink it, because you could, as you said, you could spend days trying to film the perfect video. It's never going to be perfect, and that's okay. You just got to go with it and believe in it. And if it's good, and the main thing is you're doing content that your viewers or your target audience or someone on that platform finds valuable. That's the main thing. That's why we're doing it, right? Whether it's funny or you're doing a TikTok dance or whatever it is, as long as someone finds it valuable, that's why we should be doing this. So yeah, just go. If you're not sure if you should launch into that world as an entrepreneur or whoever you are, give it a go. My piece of advice for the day. And I think touching on about like AI and stuff, this is where I suppose think the future of, I don't know, recruitment or the future of sales is going, it's the personal touch. Now there's a lot of, as I mentioned earlier, like chatbots and AI tech coming in, and like you can use automation to send automated emails out, or to send automated text messages out, or leave voicemails when you haven't even made contact with that person. And these things are brilliant. But sales and recruitment is people, and the automation and the AI that we have is only going to get more complicated as time goes on, is going to be so important at supporting people in their roles. It's never going to take it over, but the recruiters who are using AI and automation to support their sales process, their aftercare process, their leads or what have you, this is going to be the ones who are the most successful. Your people aren't just going to buy from a chatbot or a cold email. Like I've had cold emails. Again, even now in my new business, someone's what are they trying to sell me? A new website. I've got a website. I'm not going to use it. However, that's an automated process. If they picked up the phone and they rang me, we'd be more likely to have more of a call. All of a sudden, you've built a relationship with a person that we didn't have before over email. So I believe that the relationships and maintaining the fact that recruitment and sales is sales and people based, that they're going to be the people who get ahead, the ones who really use the AI and automation to support their processes. They get prompted on what to do at the right time. So they'll get a notification that says, right, you've got to go and call so-and-so today. It's time for your 2-week check-in with them. They're going to be the ones that are really, I think, getting ahead and sort of grow their business. So it's definitely not something to be scared of. But you really need to make sure that you're harnessing the powers of it in the right way to support what you need in your business and your sales pipeline.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's going to be so interesting to see how certain aspects change with AI, and it's just going to be interesting to see where AI evolves. Really, generally, like ChatGPT is what we're seeing now is the dumb version. Like in 10 years' time, we'll look at this as such basic stuff, and I can't see like sales and recruitment personally changing too much fundamentally. I think maybe the role of a consultant might change, but I think that human element is always going to be there, at least for the next sort of 10, 20 years. I mean, I don't know if you've seen that Tesla video of that AI cold calling and booking in a meeting.
No, I haven't. That sounds good though. I'll have to look at that.
Yeah, I think it's called like Tesla Air or something. But basically, this person expresses an interest online. The AI calls the prospect and then books a meeting with them. It's quite clear. It does sound good, but there's a slight lag in the responses, and yeah, you know it's not actually a person, but I don't think the person on the other end did. But what I would say as well is the person they booked a meeting in with, they use as an example, he was very warm. He was going to book a meeting anyway. Like, even on the call, he's like, yeah, all my friends have booked a meeting. All my friends have got Teslas. I want to buy a Tesla. So it wasn't like a cold call. I watched that, and if anything, to be honest with you, it made me feel actually a bit better around like how long humans have of doing cold calls. I can't see AI doing them effectively for at least 10 years personally, but it's going to be interesting. I mean, there are agencies out there right now who haven't invested any money in technology. They have spreadsheets and stuff. So there's always going to be those early adopters. There's going to be those late adopters. And I think fundamentally, though, like you said, in sales and recruitment, it's a human to human business. Because the example I always use as well, just to sort of wrap up this point, is the way I see AI cold calling going is there's going to be legislation and regulation. And I imagine there'll be something along the lines of when you get cold called by an AI AI callbot or whatever you want to call them, they'll have to make you aware at the start of the call that it's an AI callbot. So, hey Holly, just to let you know, first of all, I'm an AI callbot. You're right to chat. as soon as you know that's not a person, your emotional connection and reaction to them is so different. Like, you have no problem hanging up on a robot. But if the person on the other end is human and they sound genuine and maybe you sympathize with them or empathize with them, you might give them a time of day. And I just don't think you're ever going to get that sort of connection with AI. Like, even email sequences, we're always suspicious now if that person's actually written that email. So, and that in my opinion, that affects your how you respond. I don't know what you think.
I do agree with you. Like, if I knew, I just think it's very obvious when someone has not written it. Like, I actually got a text message this morning from my dentist. What did they say? So this is the message that I genuinely received this morning from my dentist. Hi, first name. Dr. Patricia, our orthodontist, will be offering a free consultation for a limited period during November and December. And that is just genuinely the dentist that I go to. And I thought, actually, hi, first name. My name's Holly. I've been going to you for 15 years. Like, they haven't done that. If someone had called me or potentially just dropped me a personal text, do you want to, like, I'd probably be more likely to respond. But I immediately shut down, thought they can't have got their name right, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I might reply to them and tell them. But I think you're right. Like, I'd be reluctant I personally would be reluctant to speak to a robot unless I really had to. But I think the experiences that I've had have never been good. If you go through something like, if you ring up your mobile phone provider, why are you calling today? And you go, contract renewal. I don't understand that, or whatever you think. And then you're there for 20 minutes trying to get through to the right department, shouting down the phone. So I think we've kind of got a bit of a wall that those roboty type messaging services aren't good, but it's going to have a purpose. And like, I think people still need to send, I think there's a time and a place for these sort of messages and calls and emails, but you've got to make it personal where possible. Now, what's interesting is quite a lot of my clients were, like, maybe 18 months ago, sending out really well formatted emails to candidates, like almost in like a proper, I think, is it called HTML, like really well formatted with images, and it looked lovely. Actually, there's been a switch, and the last 2 months, everyone's going, we just want like plain text or whatever it is. Literally just put it in the body of an email. Don't worry about the design, because they've now realised that when it's all formatted so lovely that people know it's not real. I get that. But I think for me, I like personalisation. Now, there are more and more things out there. Something in our industry that's kind of taking the industry by storm is something called Source Whale. And that is really good. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's really good about personalising the outreach. So it kind of gets you to connect with somebody. Then you view their profile, and then you send them a LinkedIn thumbnail that's personalised to them. So they've really created a really great product that is very much about actual personalised BD stuff, and that works. And I think it's when you're doing something like that, the personalisation of it is key, but get it right. If you want to personalise something, don't put in there dear first name, because that's not going to work. So you've got to get it right. And those who are, I generally think, will really succeed.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's going to be super interesting. Yeah, over the coming months, see what happens in the coming years. But yeah, look, thanks so much for coming on. It's been a really interesting, great chat. If people want to work with you, find out a bit more around what you do, where do they need to go?
So if you Google Restack, that's RESTACK. I've got, and you can search for that on any of the social platforms. My name is obviously Holly Langley, and I'm on LinkedIn and other places as well. So I'm sure you'll find me. I will comment below on the videos and the posts about this podcast. So you should find me down there as well. So yeah, thank you very much for hosting me. It's been really insightful. And yeah, I'll be back in maybe another 3 months to tell you what I've learned in months 3 to 6 of my business as well.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Love to have you back on. Well, thanks so much. And yeah, go check Holly's stuff out. I'll stick it all in the description and the bio and wherever you're watching or listening to this.